Hey, welcome everybody to our Monday Live. We have a really good program for you today, and you got to look at things. And you know, some people are going, "Are we in the apocalypse? What in the world is going on?" Well, we're going to have a great program. Please welcome our guest today, Bill Salus. Bill was just on a couple of weeks ago. He's back with us today. Bill, great to see you. Welcome back.
Thanks, Tom, for having me back. It's great to be on your program always.
Bill, I got to ask you this. So people are looking, I get emails. I do a lot of Q&As. You probably know that. So a question that comes up, I mean, I actually have people argue with me saying we're in the tribulation period. So Bill, are we in the tribulation period?
No, we're not in the tribulation period. The tribulation period starts when the Antichrist is on the scene, happens after the rapture. The church is taken out because the tribulation is such a terrible period of time. God's wrath gets poured out during this period of time. But it starts when the Antichrist confirms a covenant with Israel and the many. And that has not happened yet, Tom. And we find out the proof text on that in Daniel 9 and Isaiah 28. So hopefully we'll be able to get into the covenant and, you know, when that might start, what that's about, that sort of thing. But no, we're not in the tribulation just yet. It does seem like we're there because of all the signs are converging in the end times. We're seeing the move toward cryptocurrencies and all the World Economic Forum, the reset, the things they want to do, but there's no weapon that's not fashioned, no technology that's not developed, no national relationship that's not formed that would have people think, hey, we're not in the tribulation, but the tribulation we're not in just yet. Not the tribulation, the biblical tribulation.
Yeah, not the one described in Daniel and elsewhere or the book of Revelation. So when I think of that, I think what's happening is people are going, okay, we've got, it seems like people email me often and say, hey, the rider on the white horse he's already ridden. Now we're looking at the rider on the red horse that takes peace from the earth. They're looking at Russia, Ukraine, China, Iran, all over the map. However, we don't have peace on the earth right now. So it's, you know, that didn't come with the rider on the white horse or the red horse that takes peace from the earth. I believe there's something like 32 wars or battles of some sort that are taking place currently in this world right now, something like that. So we're not, you know, I don't see it. And then the black horse with economic catastrophe and famine, people are saying it looks like the black horse is ridden. Listen, we haven't hit the place. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what's going to happen when the black horse rides yet. I look at it as being a global economic catastrophe that this world has never experienced before. We hear it's coming, but I mean, these things, we're not at that place yet. I mean, it's going to be exceptionally worse than it is now.
Right. Well, the black horse is the third horseman of the apocalypse, and he rolls out when the scroll is opened. Revelation 5, Jesus Christ opens the scroll. Revelation 6, we have the seal judgments coming out. The first is the white horseman. Most would teach that's the Antichrist. I know you have some different opinions of that, but that's the first seal. Then you have the fiery red horseman. Then you have the famines that come out of the fiery red horseman taking peace from the earth with a great sword would be a biblical typology of probably world wars. And when you have world wars, you have the type of catastrophes you find in the famines, the scarcities, the pestilences of the black horseman. But until that false covenant is confirmed, and the tribulation period starts ticking, Daniel's 70th week, it's a 7-year period. We're not in the tribulation, and those seal judgments have not happened yet. And I don't believe that they'll happen until after the rapture of the church. Now, some people say the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 bowl judgments, which happen sequentially, chronologically, all happen in the tribulation period. Some of us now are testing the waters and saying, well, maybe not all the seal judgments happen in the tribulation period. I, for one, think the first 5 may happen in what's called a gap. You have the church gets raptured. You have a period of time, unspecified period of time. We don't know how long it is. And then at some point, the Antichrist comes on the scene. He confirms a covenant. We call it a false covenant. And that's when the tribulation starts ticking. And that's a 7-year covenant. It's also called Daniel's 70th week in Daniel 9:27. But at this point in time, the church is still on the earth, but the seals, in my estimation, because of Revelation chapter 5, you got these 24 elders, they're standing around the throne. They see Jesus open the scrolls, and then in Revelation 6 starts, here come the seals. The question is, do the seals actually happen in the first half of the tribulation, all of them, or could they happen in this gap period? That gap is an interesting conversation piece as well. So I personally think that until the scroll is opened, none of the seals are going to happen, and yet some of those seals may actually happen in the gap between the tribulation and between the rapture and the tribulation.
Yeah. So you, James Cadiz, and I have a very similar view on this, just from looking at certain passages that don't line up. And I also know that to some people who maybe are newer to Bible prophecy, they've heard a traditional viewpoint on that, they look at us like we're heretics. Listen, we're not heretics. We believe Jesus Christ is the only way to salvation. We believe in the Trinity, but there are these differences on what triggers the actual tribulation. So, Bill, I see it like you. We have a documentary. You actually have it on the gap period. So the rapture takes place. There's a gap, whether it be 1 month or 3 years or whatever. We don't know. But there's a lot that I believe, like you, after the rapture, I believe a lot of things are going to take place. There's going to be chaos, and this is what confuses so many people. The tribulation does not begin. The beginning of the tribulation is not marked by the rapture. It's marked by, as you said, the Daniel chapter 9 covenant of Antichrist. So rapture takes place. We go up. Wherever it is after that, the covenant is begun or confirmed. That's what triggers the 7-year tribulation period, not the rapture. And I would agree, not necessarily the seals. So what you're saying is the seals aren't necessarily part of the 7-year tribulation period, but they also don't take place until after the rapture. Would that be accurate?
Well, I don't believe they take place till after the rapture.
Right.
I believe the first 5 might fit in that gap and then, of course, overlap into the tribulation. I think the 6th seal is at least where the tribulation starts by there, because it says the wrath of the Lamb has now come. And the tribulation period, of course, the wrath of God comes out. It's completed through the 7 bowl judgments we're told in Revelation 15. So, and there's reasons I put forward in our documentary, the Pre-Tribulation Prophecies, the prophetic documentary we did, for why we believe there could be the first 5 seal judgments happening inside of the gap. And we don't know how long that gap is, but who else doesn't know how long that gap is and desperately would like to know are the 5th seal saints, the 5th seal. Yes. These saints who are under the altar. They've been martyred for their faith after the rapture. They became believers after the rapture. And they're asking God how much longer until he avenges their blood on those that, martyred them. And so basically that question we don't know, but something has to be happening, Tom, in the world so chaotically that concerns Israel. And we find out in Isaiah 28:15 what that is, what motivates Israel to be part of the covenant. And that something's got to be going on to get Israel to the table. Why would they need a covenant? They probably become a very powerful army in defeating the Psalm 83 prophecies. Their God stopped Ezekiel 38. We cover these things in our DVD. So why would Israel even care to make a covenant? What's concerning them? We find out in Isaiah 28 verses 15, that says that you've made a covenant, Israel, with death, and with Sheol you are in agreement, that when the overflowing scourge passes through, it will not come upon us, for we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood we have hidden ourselves. So we find out we got to put a face on these things, but we find out that the other party of the covenant is death and Sheol. And they're perpetrating something called an overflowing scourge that Israel is concerned about. So they covenant with death and Sheol so that overflowing scourge doesn't come upon them and overtake them. And it's made in lies and falsehood, we're told in Isaiah 28:15, meaning it's politically expedient for Israel to be involved in this covenant. Not necessarily that they agree with what's going on with death and Sheol, which, by the way, death and Sheol is also death in Hades. Hades is the Greek word for Sheol, is the Hebrew word. And they show up as the 4th horseman, the pale horseman of the apocalypse. Death and Hades come on the scene, and they've got control or authority over a quarter of the earth to kill with sword, famines, pestilences, and beasts of the earth. And so they're actually probably killing dissidents And I believe some of the dissidents would be, of course, the fifth seal saints. They're one part of the victims of the fourth horseman, death in Hades. And I think Israel is saying we don't want any part of that slaughter that's going on.
Yeah, I look at Isaiah chapter 28, and it's so intriguing. I mean, when you look at the wording of it here, these scornful men who rule Jerusalem, they made a covenant with death and with Sheol, with overflowing scourge. We've made lies our refuge. It's like they know they're entering into a covenant that is lies. They know it, but they're going into it anyway. So it's very fascinating. Okay, so we have that. All right. I want to know get your idea on the temple itself. So there, with Ben-Gvir, I talked about Ben-Gvir last time, and we both our minds are both tracking the same there with the new Israeli government. And there is more of this religious fervency because of what's happening. Netanyahu, to form his coalition, he has to make some concessions regarding the religious aspect of it. But with the temple itself, I believe the temple is going to go where the gold dome is, on the Temple Mount area. Let's see, I don't have that picture behind me. But do you believe this covenant will include the building of the temple? Or let me ask you another way. Could we see the building of the temple begin before the rapture even takes place? Because the temple doesn't mark the beginning of the tribulation, the covenant does. So there's certain last day signs we know have to happen, and the temple is one of them. How would you place the temple, or where would you place the building of it?
Yeah, well, we could see some beginning of the construction of the temple. I don't personally think we will, because I think the true content of the false covenant has a lot to do with Israel's being able to put themselves in a position to build the third temple. One of the viewpoints of when the third temple will be built is that the temple will be built, and that will hasten the coming of the Jewish Messiah, who they believe has not yet come. They don't recognize Jesus Christ as the Messiah. And I think there's three clues, and we put these clues in our DVD, Tom, as to why the true covenant, the content of the covenant, is dealing with the temple. First of all, I don't believe it's got anything to do with the Arab-Israeli conflict. A lot of people think the false covenant is going to stop the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the Arab-Israeli conflict. And our show we just did, that we would invite them to see I've got it on our YouTube channel. 2013, will these prophecies happen, is what it's called.
2023?
2023, I'm sorry, yeah.
2013, that was 10 years ago. Okay.
I want to go back in time, not ahead. 2023. Well, we talk about how these wars, the Israeli Defense Forces are going to win these wars by the Arab countries around them, namely those ones in Psalm 83, but a lot of peripheral prophecies about Jordan and Damascus being destroyed in Syria. And that conflict is going to be resolved militarily. I think it's pretty clear biblically, prophetically, that we can say that. But the temple is a different situation. The first clue we have, in my estimation, that the temple has got on the content of the covenant is, as soon as we start the tribulation period, the first half, you have John in Revelation 11 running around with a measuring rod. He's measuring the temple of God and the altar of those who worship there, namely the Jews. But he's told to leave the outer court, which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has to be given to the Gentiles. I believe that's the harlot, not the Arabs. Harlot world religion. And they will tread over the holy city underfoot for 42 months, 3.5 years. The first half of the tribulation, the first thing we see going on is John representing, in my estimation, the Jewish people, taking a measuring rod to build the temple. That would be the first thing you would do if you had the okay now with the false covenant. The other thing, too, is that the other clue I think is really telling is when we just read Isaiah 28, verses 15. I'm going to read Isaiah 28, 16, and 17. Okay. And I think they tell us that it's dealing with the temple. It says, "Behold, I lay in Zion a stone for a foundation, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a true, sure foundation. Whoever believes will not act hastily." Isaiah is saying, do not act hastily with this false covenant with death and Sheol. Because also I will make justice a measuring line, and righteousness the plummet. The hail will sweep away the refuge of lies, and the waters will overflow the hiding place. So what he's saying there is, don't be hasty. There's going to be a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. Well, those things were already laid. The tried stone, 1 Peter 2, verses 4 through 8. The precious cornerstone, Matthew 21, verse 42. Ephesians 2, verses 19 through 22. Sure foundation, 1 Corinthians 3, verse 11. Those are all talking about Jesus Christ. Yes, those are things you would say you would need to build a temple, the tried stone, the precious cornerstone. But Isaiah is saying, don't act hastily. These things have already been manifested through the coming of Jesus Christ. So to me, that's the other clue. The other third clue is in Daniel 9, verses 27.
That's really good.
Yeah, they're going to be doing offerings and sacrifices, and as per the covenant of Daniel 9:27, the other proof text for the false covenant. But in the middle of it, he goes in and stops the sacrifices and offerings. So in other words, yes, he enables through the confirmation of the false covenant the temple to be built, the sacrifices and offerings to be made, and then he goes in the mid part of the tribulation and voids out the covenant. So I think there's three strong clues as to why the true content of the false covenant has a lot to do with the Jews being able to build their temple.
That was really good, Bill. Thank you. Another question: why do you think or so many prophecy teachers have said it will be a peace covenant?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, so here's same thing. You know, I've looked at it for a long time. Okay, so perhaps it's because I'm thinking it's because the rider on the white horse goes about conquering and to conquer he has a bow. He's not using them. We know that there's some kind of peace that's initiated there, some type, because the rider on the red horse takes peace from the earth. And I think in my mind, that's the connection that prophecy teachers have made with it will be a peace covenant. But the Bible doesn't actually teach it will be a peace covenant. Does it?
Well, okay, first of all, a lot of our colleagues don't go to Isaiah 28 verses 15 and see it as another camera angle on the false covenant, which is really important. And I want to tell the viewers why. But it does say, and we said it in Isaiah 28:15, I mean, there is a peace being attempted there. They want to avoid an overflowing scourge. They want peace from that. But I don't believe that's why most of the commentary guys, our colleagues, would say that's the peace they're talking about, because a lot of them don't even go to that verse as a proof text. So in Daniel 9:27, we're given that this covenant is a 7-year term. Mm-hmm. It's confirmed by the Antichrist. Mm-hmm. He may have drafted it. He may be a party of it, but all we know is it's confirmed by him, like Jimmy Carter confirmed a covenant with Anwar Sadat and Begin in 1979 between Egypt and Israel. Like Bill Clinton did with Jordan and Israel in 1994. So Israel will trust this guy, as will death and Hades, whoever they represent, to broker this covenant, to confirm this covenant. So we're told that he confirms it. It enables temple sacrifices. This is all Daniel 9:27 clues. They can build their temple, but the Antichrist voids it out in the mid part of the tribulation when he does the abomination of desolation. But we're not told why Israel gets involved in the covenant. We're not told who the other parties is by Daniel. And so we find that out in Isaiah 28, verse 15. The other party is death and Sheol. They're perpetrating an overflowing scourge. That's the motivation that Israel is concerned about. The participation, we're told by Isaiah, is it's in lies and falsehood. In other words, it's politically expedient. It's not something that Israel's not jumping on the death and Hades bandwagon. They're just trying to get them out of their courtyard so that they can go ahead and build their temple.
Yeah, I think I just think it's interesting. And certainly peace could be a part of it. You know, there could be, but I really appreciate just some of the things that you just shared about that. The temple is coming, but you also mentioned that you don't believe it's going to have anything to do with the Arab-Israeli conflict.
Right, because that will be handled before the tribulation militarily. Ezekiel 37:10 talks about Israel coming out of the Holocaust, that dry bones vision of Ezekiel 37. And Ezekiel 37:10 says, I will bring them back and they'll be an exceedingly great army. And we see the IDF showing up. They exist today in fulfillment of biblical prophecies. We go through this on our DVD. I'm just going to do a couple scriptures that talk about that. Isaiah 17:1, Damascus will cease from being city. It will be a ruinous heap. Isaiah 17:9, there'll be desolation and it's caused by the children of Israel, Isaiah 17:9, Isaiah 17:14. One night you see Damascus, or you see him in Damascus in the masculine pronoun. In the morning he is no more. Obadiah 1 verses 18. The house of Jacob will be a fire. That's it, the Israeli Defense Forces. The house of Joseph a flame, Israeli Defense Forces. But the house of Esau, that would be representing the Palestinians, the Edomites, have ethnical representation in the Palestinians. The house of Esau shall be stubble and have no more survivor in the house of Esau. I can go through about 15 of those types of verses. One more, Jeremiah 49 verse 2. There's an alarm of war in Rabbah of the Ammonites, that's Amman, Jordan, the capital of Jordan. It shall be a desolate mound, and Israel shall take possession of its inheritance, which that's part of the covenant land, promised land of Genesis 15. So I don't see the Jews having to deal with the Arabs. Matter of fact, I think after Psalm 83 and these various wars, I think I just talked about a peripheral and I think connected to Psalm 83. I think the Jews are going to move forward and try to build their temple, but they're going to hit some resistance because there'll still be a lot of Muslims left in the world. A lot of the countries in Ezekiel 38 are Muslim. The international community is going to go up in an uproar. The Vatican's going to go in an uproar because they got a lot of holdings and things in the old city and in Jerusalem. So they're going to meet with resistance when they want to build their temple, but it won't be Arab resistance in my estimation. They can take the Dome of the Rock down. But remember, in Islam, Jerusalem is still the third holiest city. The Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the third holiest city in Islam, behind Mecca and Medina. So there's the Muslim world will be crying foul, even though Israel's won a war.
So I think of the Vatican problem, I think will go away pretty easily if the Vatican gets enough money out of the deal. That's, if you look at Jerusalem now, for anybody who's visited there, they seem to own, it's like almost everywhere you go, the Catholic Church owns just about everything. And so I believe that if there's enough of a payoff, the Vatican will be good and green light that. Also, I think this, Bill, when it comes to the temple, you have issues with the Vatican. If the Vatican's on board with this whole deal with the Antichrist, the false prophet, then why not? Because I look at it also from this angle, Satan wants that temple built because he wants to install his man to usurp the authority of Christ. We know it's not going to work, but he's going to attempt to do it because he needs to do it. So it's just an interesting dynamic that we're watching and we know is going to play out. And some of the things that are coming out of Israel right now just lead me to believe, people are definitely pursuing these things.
So you want my take on that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I think the Vatican will be bought out, and here's where we find that, I think, in Scripture. Do not measure the outer court, but leave it for the Gentiles so they can trot over Jerusalem for 3.5 years. In other words, they're part of the deal. Is they get to trot through Jerusalem for 3.5 years because they can still go to the outer court of the Jewish temple and they can do their holy sites up there. I personally think that death in Hades represents a global religion that is killing people. And remember, the harlot world religion of Revelation 17 verse 6 says, she's drunk with the blood of the saints past and the martyrs of Jesus future. And to me, and I think that's why the fifth seal saints I think they're being killed by the global world religion. I mean, I don't want to get you kicked off YouTube, so I want to be careful what I say here. But personally, I see death in Hades as being the harlot world religion. I see the harlot as being led by Roman Catholicism. And I believe that's who's involved in getting to tread over the outer court for 3.5 years in Revelation 11. Now, wait till you get all your emails on that one.
Okay. No. Well, so I'm going to go there for a second. So just so y'all know, Bill and I talked earlier today about doing a program just on the app so we can say these things, just the two of us, so we can say some of these things that we know that we can't necessarily say right now. So we're going to do it. We'll let you know when that's coming. It'll be scheduled. And we're hoping to be able to do a lot more. Well, we will do a lot more like that too. So we'll let you know. Bill will announce it and I'll announce it so you can get ready for that because there's so much to talk about. Here's something else you and I both agree on is that when you look at this harlot world religion, it's often been pigeonholed to just be the Catholic Church. I believe it's much bigger than the Catholic Church. It's infected everything since the beginning, and it's grander than that. You know, I know Dave Hunt's book that he wrote on that regarding Revelation chapter 17 and the woman who rides the beast, but I think it's bigger than that. And so, yeah, we're gonna have a fun time.
The difficult thing is that, okay, some people think it's a super church, right? You know, all ecumenical and all that. But how do you desolate a super church with all the different religions and stuff like that?
Yeah.
You know, it would be easy to desolate. The 10 kings are involved in Revelation 17 and 16 with the desolation of the harlot world religion in cahoots with the Antichrist. And then it says they give all their kingdom, which would include the assets and everything from the desolated harlot, to the Antichrist. So you could easily desolate the harlot world religion if it was confined to the Vatican and the Catholic cathedrals and things like that, and confiscate their wealth, which at that time would be getting all kinds of tithes coming in. And they do still declare they're the one true church. And even though they would probably embrace Islam, and which I think would be much compromised by then after the wars of Ezekiel 38 and Psalm 83, even though they embrace the different religions, Hinduism, etc., they will still want to be the leader of it, because you know your eternal salvation is only as good as your last mass, as far as they're concerned. I write about this quite a bit in the Next Prophecies book that I have.
So you do believe then that it is the Catholic Church?
I believe they lead over a broad base of religions that come into it. Remember, Hinduism venerates many female goddesses. Islam venerates Mary is right underneath Fatima. So I mean, you know, it's pretty, and the Vatican Council has been reaching out to the different religions. I just think that they will, and I believe there could be more things like Mary apparitions and things like that, supernatural things that happen to sort of lead the flocks into the Vatican fold.
But it will be all-encompassing. So just so I get my head thinking the way, understanding what you're saying. So you have and this is all, you know, we don't know for sure, but it is looking at things, looking at the Bible and putting things together in order for Revelation chapter 17 to be effective in the way that the 10 kings are going to make the woman who rides the beast desolate. You have to have a certain specific entity to make it desolate. It can't just be a big ecumenical thing. So the Catholic Church leading this and this final world religion, but it's encompassing all of these others. Is that in line with what you're saying?
It is, and I've got a really, I think, very telling clue that we can do on your app program. When you look at the letter to the Church of Thyatira, the fourth letter out of the 7 letters, and those letters have a prophetic application. Yes, there were 7 churches in Asia Minor that at the time John wrote, and at any given time during the church age, you could find a type of those 7 churches. But it was also given a prophetic application. The Church of Philadelphia will be kept from the hour of trial, right? For instance, well, here's what we're told in the Church of Thyatira, which I believe represents the Catholic Church chronologically, prophetically. It says, Revelation chapter 2, verses 20 and 21, 22. I have a few things against you, that woman Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess, to teach and seduce my servants to commit sexual immorality and eat things sacrificed to idols. And I gave her time to repent of her sexual immorality, and she did not repent. Indeed, I will cast her into a sick bed, and those who commit adultery with her into great tribulation, unless they repent of their deeds. So I think that particular church, prophetically speaking, whoever that represents, is going to be cast into the Great Tribulation, which is the second half of the 7-year tribulation period. So we can talk more into detail about that at our private showing on your application.
Yeah, we got some things to talk about there, that's for sure. Okay, here's a question for you. This is from Darren McBee. How far does all of this world calamity have to take, how far does it have to go is what I think they mean, before we have to realize we are in the tribulation? So I'm guessing, I'm not sure if Darren is believing we are in the tribulation already, or if he's saying, hey, how much further will it be until we will be in the tribulation? It's one of those two.
Well, personally, I think we've done a pretty good job to explain that we're not in the tribulation yet, because the false covenant that triggers the tribulation, also known as Daniel's 70th week and Daniel 9:27, has not been confirmed yet by the Antichrist. I personally don't believe the Antichrist will come onto the scene and be revealed, the lawless one of 2 Thessalonians 2, until after the church is taken away. And I think that we see that happening in Revelation chapter 4 and Revelation chapter 5. Church is gone, the Antichrist comes on the scene, and then he confirms a covenant at some point down the road, and then the tribulation starts. Now, that hasn't happened yet. The church is still here. The Antichrist, although he's probably on the scene somewhere, because Satan has to have a point man at all times, he doesn't know when the church is going to go. But he has not come to the surface, gained the relationship politically with Israel on a level where he could confirm a covenant, nor is Israel in a position to want to confirm that covenant just yet. But tribulation in the world, Jesus said, in this world you'll have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. But, the tribulation we're talking about is terrible, because basically we're told by Isaiah that the world is going to pass away grow old like a garment. We're told in 2 Peter 3:10, the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. We're talking about the world being destroyed to a point where there'll be this trumpet judgments, the seal judgments. So, for instance, the trumpet judgments, you're going to have, the first one is going to be fire mixed with hail and blood. It burns a third of the trees and the green grass. Second trumpet judgment, you're going to have a burning mountain thrown into the sea that destroys a third of the sea and the creatures, a third of the creatures, and a third of the ships. Third trumpet, a burning star is going to fall from heaven named wormwood. It's a third of the rivers are going to turn bitter, and drinking water will be scarce, and many men will die. Fourth trumpet, a third of the sun, moon, and stars will be darkened, and a third of the day there'll be no light. The fifth and sixth and seventh trumpets are the woe judgments, the 3 woe judgments. And those are a whole topic of discussion. But you'll have these, I believe woe 1 talks about locusts coming and tormenting men for 5 months that don't have the seal of God. I believe those are demons. Then you got the 200 million troops coming out of the 6th trumpet judgment that kill a third of mankind. We're not in that time frame right now, and nor is the church going to be going through that period of time, because we're to be taken out before the wrath of God comes down on the world.
Yep, totally agree. Okay, here's the question for you. Let me see. It's about Neom. You're familiar with Neom or whatever that city is, right? That is. Let me see. Let me pull it up here. Come on.
In Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia. The question is. I have a few questions here. Do you think the line or Neom could be Babylon? And I found this interesting. You're friends with John Haller, and he brought up a map with all of the land boundaries that Babylon had control of during the time of Nebuchadnezzar. And when he brought it up, the whole line Neom actually falls within those boundaries, and it actually is on the sea also. So I just found it interesting, but what are your thoughts on that? I think I asked you about that years ago, because this Neom concept isn't something that's brand new. It's been around for quite some time. I remember, Bill, I think the first time I asked you about it was probably 2016, I'm guessing. Maybe I could probably find it in my notes, maybe even further back than that. But it's been developed since then, and now, we have other players involved now too. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think so. Matter of fact, I had a debate with Joe Richardson, who thought Mecca would be the great mystery Babylon, the great city of the harlot world religion. I took the Rome side. So we have a debate on my website, the identity of mystery Babylon, Mecca or Rome. Now, of course, Neom becomes in the topic, because that's even going to be a bigger city, right? Where it could maybe be where commercial Babylon is or whatever. Personally, I think mystery Babylon, Revelation 17:5, on her name was written, on her forehead was written a name, mystery, comma. So we got a mystery, one of the New Testament mysteries. It's going to be revealed, like Jesus revealed the mystery of the stars and the candlesticks in Revelation 1. If we got a mystery Babylon, great, the harlot, mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. So we got this mystery, and we find out in Revelation 17 where the city is and what the mystery Babylon is. Revelation 7, but the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, the 7 heads and 10 horns. So he goes on and talks about the Antichrist and the 10 horns and so on and so forth, but he gives us the clues that we need to know about the mystery of the woman. Okay, so we find out the woman, the mystery is on 7 mountains is where the woman sits. So we have a location given, and at that time the 7 mountains were was Rome, the city that's set on 7 hills, 7 mountains. He goes on talking about the woman you saw was sitting on many waters, which the waters represent, Revelation 17:15. Peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So it's a global reach. It's headquartered on 7 hills. It's got a global reach. And then I think the telling one in Revelation 17:18 says, so he's talking to John the angel, and the woman you saw, because John saw her in this vision, the woman you saw, past tense, is the great city, present tense, which reigns over the kings of the earth, which was Rome at that time. So I think it's Rome sitting on 7 hills with a global reach. And that's the woman John saw in the vision, and the woman that was reigning over the kings of the earth at John's time.
Okay, thank you very much. Here's a question. This kind of goes back to something you already said. Or it actually is, it is the problem, and it is God getting people's attention. This comes from Michelle Bauer. She says, please, how will people survive with the water being poisoned and land and food being destroyed? That's the point. When God's judgment comes, it's an attempt of God to get the people to repent, but it is judgment. So, Michelle,
well, there's two stages. There's two stages to answer that question. One is, right now, people will survive if they believe in Jesus Christ and get raptured, don't have to go through it, right? So.
But during the trip, I think she's thinking during the trip. Well, I'm glad you said that, because that needs to be answered first. Thank you.
Well, obviously she's thinking the people who get left behind, but hopefully she's not not be among them. Hopefully she's concerned about her loved ones who will be going through the worst period of time in the world's history, confined into a 7-year period of time where the world will be utterly destroyed. And I like to bring this up too, because there are quite a few people who sit in the camp. Well, I'm a believer. I believe in a pre-trib rapture. I'm going to be taken out of here before the tribulation. So why should I care? Well, this is why you care. This question is so poignant because it will be very difficult to survive. People will need to know, there's going to come a time where biblical prophecy is going to be very important to people who become believers after the rapture, because they're going to need to know what's going to happen and how they can prepare for it and how they can steward their lives and where they can go and that sort of thing, because they're going to be going through a period of time that's perilous, where the whole world will be convulsing, it'll be hard to survive. But there will be people who do survive. They go through and they don't take the mark of the beast, which will be offered at the mid part of the tribulation. Because we find out in Revelation and Matthew 25, when Jesus returns, he does this Gentile judgment called the sheep and the goat Gentile judgment. And the sheep are people who survive through the tribulation period that get to go into the kingdom and inherit the kingdom. They'll have remnants from Iran, and in Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 39. You'll have remnants from Syria and Egypt in Isaiah chapter 19. They have remnants from Jordan and Isaiah and Jeremiah 48 and 49. So there'll be Gentiles who actually make it through, but they got to be prepared and they got to know how to get through it. We actually have a spiritual survival kit for those left behind. It's a flash drive that we put together that's got all my books from here to eternity, all my DVDs, so that they can actually have a flash drive they can put in their pocket if they're fleeing for their lives. They can download it on their cell phone. So we're very concerned about that question she's got. People need to know how to survive, but the way they'll know is by knowing the prophetic word of God and how to prepare for the events that are going to come upon them.
God's holy word declares, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience. Yes, the time is rapidly approaching when God will judge a Christ-rejecting humanity. God's wrath happens during what is described in the book of Revelation as the 7 years of tribulation. However, prior to this 7-year period, true disciples of Jesus will be suddenly taken from the earth in the event commonly known as the Rapture. Those left behind will find themselves in a world of great stress and confusion. In addition, shortly after the rapture, everything consisting of Christian literature, Bibles, Christian commentaries, and videos will be censored and removed from bookstores and the internet. But there will be many individuals who realize what happened to those who suddenly disappeared, and they will fall to their knees and seek the Lord Jesus and His eternal salvation. For this reason, Prophecy Depot Ministries has developed a unique USB flash drive titled Spiritual Survival Kit for Those Left Behind. This flash drive will show those left behind how to get saved and learn how to survive the horrendous 7-year tribulation period described in the book of Revelation. Also, if your loved ones are forced into exile to escape persecution, this flash drive is easy to conceal and cannot be electronically compromised by an outside intruder. If you are a believer, the Spiritual Survival Kit is a gift indeed for a friend in need. It's your way of leaving a piece of you behind. The recipient can discover how to get saved, learn how to survive, and maybe even become a leader in the body of Christ during the tribulation period. The Spiritual Survival Kit contains 5 prophetic books with over 1,400 pages of biblical commentary and 8 hours of teaching DVDs from author Bill Salus' End Times series entitled From Here to Eternity. Also included on the flash drive is a complete Old and New Testament Bible. This invaluable instructional content can also be viewed on a cell phone via an attachment cord. Everyone knows someone who will need this survival kit. Bless them today.
That's an excellent answer. It's very interesting about this also. I'm thinking, I'm hoping the rapture isn't too far off. Because just when you look at technology, you mentioned having a thumb drive and you're fleeing, right? Because you've got to be able to escape the wrath of Antichrist. And you've received Jesus, and there are some people who will survive. If you're fleeing and you have a thumb drive, you put it in your phone or whatever system it is, you would probably, the way technology is, you'd be tracked immediately. So, I mean, things are happening so fast. So I'm thinking there's not a lot of time left, but no man knows the day or the hour, but just with the advance in technology and dynamics in the world shaping up in Israel, I'm thinking, come quickly, Lord Jesus. Here's a question for you, Bill, from Mechanic 350. Am I going to have any memory of my loved ones being left behind? Am I going to have memory of anything down here?
Well, I'm not really sure that I have the answer to that. We do find out in toward the end in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, I believe it is. 21. Yeah. There's no more death curse, sorrow, crying, no more pain, tears. But then again, we remember the story with the rich man and Lazarus, where he was sent down to, the Sheol compartment, the hell, so to speak. And he was cognizant of his concerns. He wanted Lazarus to reach out and help his brothers to not have to go to the torment place that he was at. So, I don't know. I'm under the impression we might know. What about the white throne judgment, where we've got in the aftermath period after the Messianic kingdom, we're all sort of standing there, and I believe we will be there as well. And the books are open, and all the people are cast out of hell and death and Hades, out of the sea, and they stand before the white throne judgment where Jesus Christ is sitting upon there, and they're getting an account of their lives going through. Are we going to know if some of those people were part of our family or that sort of thing? I personally think we probably will. How can that be erased from our mind when we see our neighbors standing before the white throne judgment? So, I don't have the answer to that. I think some people think we won't. A lot of people hope we won't, but I think we might.
Yeah, we'll know for sure when we get there. But yeah, it's just an interesting question. But I do know this: since there's no more pain, no more suffering, no more sorrow, for the former things are gone, we will not have anything that's going to cause us any kind of emotional pain when we're in heaven. And so however God works that out, we will find out. And I know this much, it's going to be remarkable when we get to be with the Lord. Paul wrote, "Eye has not seen, nor has ear heard, nor has entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for those that love him." And these things are beyond our imagination when we just start contemplating the things of heaven and the things that God has for us. And I encourage people to be as heavenly minded as they possibly can. And two things I love doing, Bill, is Bible prophecy and talking about Bible prophecy in heaven, the biblical positions on heaven, because they get my mind focused on Jesus and they get my mind focused on things above. And I know that I'm not going to have this sorrow in heaven. So when I think, okay, what about my loved ones and so forth, family, people, if they're not saved, am I going to contemplate on that when I'm in heaven? I know I'm not, because of the joy that the Lord is going to give me. And I don't know how it all works out, but I trust in the Lord and I live by faith and I move forward like that. Here's one that's right up your alley. Alicia Cardenas says, if the Roman Empire expanded to Europe, is the British monarchy an extension of Antichrist?
I don't really know for sure. I mean, I don't try to pin the tail on the Antichrist. All I know is he's going to come out of the revived Roman Empire as per Daniel 9:26. The people who destroyed the city and the sanctuary, which was Rome in 70 AD. Whether he'll come out of Britain or Germany or France or whatever, I don't really know, but I do believe he will come out of the western part of the revived Roman Empire.
So this Sunday night, I'm in Micah chapter 5, and I'm in the passage where Micah talks about the Assyrian. So I'm already getting emails from people who follow Joel Richardson who are letting me know that, what the correct position is on who Antichrist is going to be. So I'm looking forward to talking about this Sunday night. I think I'm going to have some people in the comments arguing with me.
Well, a lot of the Assyrian references in Isaiah and elsewhere have already been fulfilled in my estimation. So you got to be a little careful when you're, labeling the Assyrian as the Antichrist to make sure that has not already been fulfilled to an Assyrian king or something like that. I'm not saying you haven't done that in Micah. I'm just saying.
I'm looking. It'll be an interesting conversation that I have with folks. So yeah, it'll be great. So with that, I forgot what my next question was. Oh, so this goes back to the opening. All this to say, Bill, because I can read some of the comments from the app and from YouTube and from different people. Some people are still convinced the tribulation has already begun. Bill, I think you laid out a pretty good case that the tribulation has not yet begun. There's just some markers that can't take place until the tribulation begins. I think you did a great job on laying it out. So I don't know what else to say.
Well, just a quick run through. There's about 36 prophecies or more that happen in the tribulation peried.
Can you do 36 in a quick run through?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll do all 36 of them. I just have to buzz off the titles. But there's a first half, a midpoint with a lot going on, about 9 or 10 prophecies there. Abomination of desolation would be one of them, a war in heaven, Revelation chapter 12. Then you got a second half where you got a lot going on there with the Jewish remnant is fleeing to Petra, and you got the 8 stages of the Armageddon campaign and the fall of Jerusalem, etc. So the things, when you understand what are going to happen in the tribulation period, very well specified and compartmentalized in the first 3.5 years, the midpoint, and the second. None of those things have happened yet when you look at it. So basically, we talked about what triggers it, the confirmation of the false covenant. But I would invite people to go through and read. My thumb drive's got it. We got a whole book series on it. That we actually lay out all the things, the 36 so prophecies that happen in the tribulation when it happens, and those have not happened yet.
Yeah. So, by the way, tomorrow my guest is Bill Koenig, everybody. So it's going to be pretty exciting. Have Bill Koenig on here. We're going to be talking about what's going on in Israel, and hold on to your seats for that one tomorrow. And with that, Bill, still the tribulation does not begin till Antichrist confirms that covenant. So that hasn't happened yet. But Bill, people can contact you. Your information is in the description Prophecy Depot. You have books, you have DVDs, you have things we've done together. You have a lot out there. I would encourage everybody to go there and learn. And whether or not you agree or disagree with Bill, I have people that I disagree with all the time, but I still get to learn a lot from him. I think it's great, and I think you will enjoy what Bill has available.
Thank you, Tom.